What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner and 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And I host the only online show in the world for fathers and dads that is sponsored by Dove Men Care, also co-sponsored by Dad Central, Canada's national fatherhood organization. And I am the board chair for the Global Food and Drink Initiative, which is a multimedia not-for-profit that showcases Blacks in the diaspora that are doing their thing in food, wine, and travel. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. If you know a little bit about me or if you know nothing about me, I always like bringing new people, new friends onto the platform. So we have another new friend tonight. Katrina Elkins is a men's communication and intimacy coach. In 16 weeks, high-achieving executives, 6 to 9-figure earners, and visionaries crush behavioral patterns that are devastating to the health of their finances and relationships. Language of Lions is a private group that focuses on the subconscious DNA somatic healing, transformational coaching, and quantum science for men to be seen and heard. Katrina has worked with hundreds of men from around the world in their transformation of forging stronger professional and personal relationships with the mastery of their intuitive, emotional intelligence, EQ, self-expression, and sexuality. She is currently accepting a few dedicated men for private one-on-one work, and she's going to be joining us tonight talking about the conversation topic, honesty in relationships, why we lie, and how we move forward into oneness and authenticity. Let's welcome for the first time, but not the last time, Ms. Katrina Elkins. How are you?
Oh, I am very well. I am so glad to be here with you, Dr. Vibe. It's such an honor, really. I'm in gratitude.
Wonderful. Well, how's the day been so far?
Today's been interesting. I have two children. I have a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old. And so as all of you who are parents, you understand the interesting dynamics that always show up every day.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Very much so. And how are you handling the pandemic?
It's been, oh my goodness, it's been a crawl. Like, you know, I'm a go.
It's been a crawl. I haven't heard that one yet. Go ahead.
It's been a crawl. Like I'm a go-getter, you know. I was traveling the world for a while, and I am very dedicated to the places of support for my clients. And it was like a year ago in March, it was like, all right, like we're all huddled in, right? And so it's been a real interesting 14 months. Like places of, you know, in January, I really wanted to take some strong, bold action. And I did. I hired a place of support with a coach, and I really rooted into things, but it feels like I've been crawling. Like, just like, all right, this is as fast as I'm going, and that's that.
Right. Okay.
So.
Well, I hope to see you hope you get to the pace you want to get to sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, we read some of your bio, but like we do with all our new friends, can you give us a little bit more background where you grew up, life before you got into coaching, etc.?
Yeah. So I'm a small town girl in northeastern Washington. That's where I grew up, and I am really connected to the land. I've always just really thrived. I love the places of connection with the earth. And I was really confused by emotions as a child. I didn't understand them. I grew up in a religious cult. It was like an end times apocalyptic cult. And so it was a place where I just like stuffed all my emotions, held it all in, and I didn't know how to share my emotions, to be seen, to be heard in my truth. And so, you know, I went into my 20s and 30s. I really was doing the thing, got married, and started a few businesses. And I just wasn't really connecting with what I really knew I was here to do. So at the age of 40 is when things really started to open up for me. I started to see that I needed to take big moves to help people through emotional intelligence. And so I started learning how to navigate those areas. And I have learned a lot and supported a lot of people in their own process, couples, individuals. And I really find that the places of support that I really enjoy and love is really helping men crush some of the behavioral patterns with anger, shame, or things that are destructive to their relationships with their family or with their finances.
Okay.
So in my own journey, I've experienced all those places. So
okay. Thank you for sharing that. My next conversation would be, how did you get into coaching and why coaching men?
So do you want me to answer that question right now?
Hey, it's your show. You're driving the ship. I'm just staring.
Do it. So this is a really great question because I was a writer. Like, I saw myself 11 years ago with the passing of my mom. I was really struck with grief and I didn't know how to navigate it. So I just started writing, and I found a passion and a love for writing. And so over 6 years, I started to really awaken some things. I would like not be able to sleep in the middle of the night. I was navigating some areas of things that I really loved, right? I could start to feel passion about certain things in my life. I loved being a mother. I really embraced that fully. And then in 2015 was when I was like, something's like, there's more, right? And so I became an international best-selling author. Finally, I was seen and heard. And then I took the steps to receive some really powerful coaching for some of the emotional trauma that I had as a child. And so that really evolved into a place of where I was like, oh, I am supposed to help others in very powerful containers where they're supported to be able to navigate some of the traumas and the real messy situations that our life can create when we don't have tools to understand how to navigate emotional intelligence, how to really be honest with ourselves and express our honesty. So we need tools, we need community, and we need support. And I really found that through leaning into support. And then I started to blossom. I became a breath worker, a somatic healer. And that is when I really saw the care and the place of compassion that I could hold for really messy situations like anger, shame, around betrayal, cheating, some of the real places of depression and suicide, things like that. Like I knew that I could hold that space with compassion and to be able to help others to transmute that and to heal themselves.
I always like when people achieve breakthroughs. Can you think of a moment in which you just described, that breakthrough moment? And also, before you get to that, condolences on your mother passing away.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a transformation period, a time of major transformation. And then my daughter was born. So it was a beautiful, the death and birth cycle. So, which we all get to embrace in many, many different ways. And that's really the foundation of how I help people navigate these areas of life, is embracing the death and the birth. So the moment was probably 5 years ago, when there was a moment when I wasn't sure that my partner of 20 years was going to come home. And so I was stuck in a hotel room with 2 young children, not knowing what my future had for me, and feeling very dependent on another person for my safety, my vitality, you know, the places of security that a lot of women tend to put themselves into, because, you know, and that was fine, and I was fine with being a stay-at-home mom. But in that moment, I knew that things had to start to change, and so that was the beginning of my journey to sovereignty.
Okay, good. Now, you reached out for coaching. When did it become a realization, or when did you say, you know what, I want to be a coach?
So, like, actually, it was a month and a half after that incident that I reached out for coaching. I knew something had to change. And then that coach, like, I knew that coach was showing me how to be a breath worker and to help others, right? So it was massive, a bold step, because I knew I was supposed to work with this coach.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only in that moment, and this has kind of been for me in my trajectory of my life, I've always noticed whenever there's a critical place of like a major breakthrough, I've always noticed that in that moment, that's when I'm called to serve. Like, it's not just about me and my transformation, it's always about the greater ripple and the bigger impact that means for me. So somehow, and it's a very interesting thing, I've had a few interviews about this, there's something within me that I find when I'm working through some of this stuff, if I'm helping and showing that and supporting others, it's like it's exponential what happens.
Mm.
It's exponential, and it's been a major place. I mean, I can point to 5 different very loud places of where that's happened in my life in the last 5 years.
Okay. Do you remember your first male coaching client?
Yes, I do. It was vividly.
Okay,
Like,
go
I
ahead.
was thrilled. This was 4 years ago, and I was like, oh, like, I had been coaching women, I've been doing a lot of work with women, and then I knew that I was being called to help support men. I knew it, because I had had a dream like 8 years ago where I got that message very loud and clear. And so I just accepted it. And so when that first opportunity came, I was like, oh my God, this is really happening, right? And so then it was a space where I got to really know, yes, I do really have something here that can really support men in their evolution and their transformation. So then more and more men came in, like instantly after that, probably within that first 2 months, it was about 3 or 4 different men all came in from different places in the world, India, Dubai, Mexico. So it was just like this huge, like, evolution that had happened when I finally said yes.
Nice. Very, very nice. So let's transition. You want to speak to power to a topic tonight. I think a lot of people will be listening to you. You want to talk about honesty in relationships, why we lie, and how to move forward into oneness and authenticity. Why did you want to talk about that tonight?
Oh, this is such a good one. I really, like, 3.5 years ago, when I really rooted in, I knew that I was being called to talk about radical honesty. Like, how can we be really honest with ourselves, first of all? And how can we use our voice to do that? And also then the importance of that for our partner, our spouse, our loved ones, in us being able to really be in that space of honesty. And what got me really onto this one today is I had watched another relationship coach this morning. It was like 3 minutes. I was on Facebook and I was like, Oh my goodness. He was speaking to that place of why we lie. And a lot of this is the place of our childhood traumas, right? Our childhood, when we're modeled, when we're shown
Mhm.
in different ways how it's okay to lie. And then as we grow older, we don't even really realize what the programming, what that subconscious pattern is. And so it's just by the time you're in your 30s or 40s, you just do it and you're not even sure why you're doing it. And it becomes so inherently easy. And so the work that we're being called to, especially because of COVID, you know, I've seen so many relationships devastated and struggling. And in my own personal life, you know, I've had to become really honest with what I want. And like a foundation for me is honesty in my relationships. But it all starts with me.
Okay.
So
Fantastic. So when you first got your first client, how did they feel about a lady coaching a man?
he was thrilled. Like, honestly, there's this really interesting thing. He had posted something on Facebook saying, I wish that more women could understand that, for anyone who understands masculine energy, and feminine energy. He said, I wish that more women could understand that there's this masculine energy that flows through women as well, and to embrace that and to stop the divide and the separation of us as humans, and to start to come into this oneness, right? To where we can learn from each other, and it's not about gender, it's not about race, it's not about you know, our preferences, but it's about our oneness. And so he was really grateful because he knew that I offered a place for him to be able to be really honest and in communication with a woman, which is really what was really important for him at that moment, to share what he was working through. And it was just like he didn't even like he really honestly didn't even think too much about it. And then as it's evolved,
Mhm.
it's more like what I see is that there's just a certain comfort level, and there's a place of like, I hold a container where people can just voice what it is that they are so scared to even admit or voice, and they say it, and it's like this plug that releases, and then all this other magical stuff that starts to happen in their life.
Okay. Good, good, good. So, gonna give you a phrase, and some people may say it's an oxymoron. Some ladies may say, even some men may say it's an oxymoron. Men and honesty in relationships. What's the state these days, in your opinion?
You know what? Whew, that is a that's yes. Yeah. I my God, you gave me a good one. So I there are some very powerful, dedicated men that I've seen that can really open up because they're starting to really be honest with themselves and what they want. You know, they're really rooting into what it is that they really want in this life. And it's not about instant gratification. It's not about like, you know, just like do it. Like it's about what they really want,
Mm-hmm.
that's really present, and they're starting to get really honest about that. And what the ripple is that it's actually forging stronger relationships with their partner, spouse, loved ones. And but it takes a lot of work. It takes that, like, okay, I got to be willing to do this work inside. And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, Dr. Vibe, it's about personal responsibility.
Okay.
If the men are saying yes, I'm willing to be personally responsible for what I want in this life, then it's like these places of these hidden subconscious patterns where lies, where cheating, or where, you know, all these different things that could come out start to become addressed. And then it's like, oh, okay, I can start to navigate and I can handle this because I have tools now, and I have resources, and I have containers that are safe to be able to address these things where I wasn't willing to take responsibility before for. So
All
it
right.
really comes down to, men, are you ready to take responsibility for your emotions and for the love that's inside of you? You know, I was in a session the other day, and one of the most beautiful things is for a man to remember the love that is in his heart already, that's already there. It never goes away. It's just to remember that and to reconnect with that, and to know that they are loved no matter what, and to be able to be in that place. So I would say there's a lot of, it's like, yes, there's men that will connect with me and they'll dance around it, and I know they're not ready to be honest. I know that they're still lying to themselves and they're not ready. And so that's fine, because the work that men do with me, they have to be honest with themselves. And so usually the only ones that will say yes to this place of work are the ones that are ready to fully embody that and to really move into those places.
Okay. With men in relationships, what has the pandemic, how has that impacted men and not only men in the relationships, but honesty in relationships? You started with honesty with themselves.
Yeah. I'd say the big thing for that space is some of the addictions that can happen. Really, like, you know, with alcohol, sex addictions can really come up as well, because the pandemic, we're all like disconnected, right? We're not in these places. So the human interactions, like some of these things really start, the crutches show up. And there's nothing more beautiful for any person to be able to go, you know what, I have this crutch, and I am willing to address this. And I think COVID has really pushed us into those places of us being able to identify some of the crutches that we have and how they are impacting the health of our relationships. And I think that's where I personally have felt like that crawling, right? Like that slowing down, like things have to slow down so we can identify these places of these crutches that we're using to not address unhealed trauma, or places of not understanding how to navigate emotions and the emotional intelligence that's required for all relationships to be healthy.
Okay. Would you give a layman's definition of emotional intelligence, if possible?
Whew. So let's say you're angry, right? Let's say you have some anger like coming up, and you're telling your children or you're telling your spouse or your partner, I'm not angry. That's a lie. They already know you are. And you can say what you want, but they know. And that's creating, you're lying to yourself. So you're not accepting the place of the anger, right? I know this because I've done that. Like it's a learning of, okay, I am angry.
Yep.
And I know how to navigate this without making the other person responsible for my anger.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's knowing how to navigate our emotions without making the other person responsible, especially children, because children know what you're feeling.
Yes.
They're such sponges, and they know, and they can
Very
pick
smart.
up on
They're very smart. They're very smart. So with the men that you're coaching, if you ask them where do they get their emotions, or what's the source of their emotions, do they identify like a father or a brother? Like, I know you probably get very deep in their emotional walk. Where do they feel that? Where do they say is the source of their emotions or their patterns?
Ooh, both. The patterns are from the father and the mother, both. Like a lot of the hidden traumas, some of the hidden traumas can be from very young with the fathers. That's what I've noticed is some of like let's say for example like toys that were left out, and then the father decided, well, this is not okay, and did something really loud, and so that stays with the child, right? And so as I'm working with a lot of my clients, what happens I find is that they start to really identify some of the pain from the father that they experienced. And then what happens is they start to open up to some of the places of the mother where they
Mhm.
didn't feel heard, seen. And so it's kind of this evolution for them. But a lot of the deep, deep stuff, I would say, is really addressing the father wound for them.
Share with our audience how deep father wounds are with a lot of men.
Oh my God. I, it it's it's something that a lot of us are not talking about. And in my own, and I will speak from my own personal place. It was just 2 months ago where I discovered, as a 6-year-old, I came into a place of awareness where I did not feel safe with my father at all.
Wow.
And so this was just recent for me, right? And so I'm walking this path, uncovering, discovering these places. And that really, for 40 years, 40 years, it has impacted my ability to speak. And within the release of that and letting that trauma release from my body, I've been able to fully accept the gifts that I have. And that's really the timeline when I said, you know what, I am willing to work and own my lane, that I work with men. Whereas before I was working with men and women, but it was right around this discovery that I really owned the results that I really do get with men. And um, what I'm just going to speak to really quickly here is really important. So in that moment when I did not feel safe with my father, I created a thing in my being that I was the parent somehow. So there was a role reversal in that moment,
Mm.
that has impacted my life for 40 years.
Wow.
So what happened was that I got to be the 6-year-old. I got to go and feel and reclaim my 6-year-old and be in a space to receive my father in a different way. So that ultimately has opened up so much for me. It's opened up abundance with money. It's opened up my ability to be able to communicate where I don't feel safe. It's also really impacted and have made this abundance, where I didn't feel seen or heard for my gifts. And so it's just massive. The father wound is massive. This is for me in my own personal experience. So for men, you can only imagine the ripple and the impact of addressing some of these early childhood development. And I will just say, I want to say this one thing, because when I started learning about some of the somatic, the DNA, the rewiring, that stuff in 2012, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm doomed, because my childhood was messed up, right? And I'm like, how am I ever gonna be like a really fully functional sovereign being. How is that going to work? And I'm saying to you, almost 9 years now, it's possible. And it, like, by doing the work, I have done it. I've rewired my brain. I've connected with these places that I never thought I would go to. And I've released these traumas that have been stuck within me for so many years. And now I just have gratitude because
That,
it's been worth it to do it.
that's fantastic. To come to a position of gratitude.
Yep.
That is huge. So if that had such an impact on you, again, how much impact is it having to a lot of our men out there?
Oh my God. I can't even, like, the men who are willing to do this work, I am like, thank you. Thank you for doing this work, because it is going to impact your children. It's going to impact generations from now. It is so needed for all of us. And it's really the call that I have felt. I know, like, I knew from when I was 13 years old that there is a place that I have and a role and a purpose to help support men, because I saw that my dad was not heard or seen. I could see the ache, and I could see the generational trauma.
Mm.
And I could see where he didn't feel safe, where he felt emasculated, where he was dependent on an outside source for his freedom, which he thought was his freedom, right? So all these places I got to see and witness and know that I am here to help change that.
Nice. Nice. Well, let's move on to the next part of the equation that you're wanting to deal with, address tonight. Why we lie. Now, are you was talking us in general, or are we specifically talking about men?
We can just in general, it's fine.
Go ahead. So why do we lie?
Well, I think the biggest thing is I think we're scared of our own bliss and our own joy. And I think that sometimes we get into places of like, wow, we really desire to feel, to be all these things. And so I believe that we tell ourselves we're not worthy of that. We don't deserve that. So we start to create these stories and these scenarios of why we don't deserve it, why we're not worthy. So then we start to communicate that in ways to people, to our children, saying that they don't deserve what they want, or that your significant other. It's this place. This can be a really interesting topic, I think, right? Because I think there's a place here where if we don't feel that we're getting the things that we want, we have to lie about it in order to get what we want. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't work. Because what we really want is freedom. We really want freedom. And freedom can look like so many different things for so many different people. So my question is, what is real freedom for us? And why are we lying to ourselves what freedom really means for each of us?
Good question.
Right?
Good question. Yeah, absolutely. But Katrina, and it's an interesting thing. Two things that come up in my mind, alleged mind. One of my mentors told me a long time ago, and going back to the honesty piece in men, that boys make excuses, men take responsibility. I think that's a foundational piece for me, is that men taking responsibility, and how much impact does culture and does how a man is brought up affect on his honesty, let alone to himself, but honesty to others these days. Because many men that share with me, they are all over the place. So what am I supposed to be as a man? I'm getting all these mixed messages culturally, the way I was raised. They're being bombarded, and their brain can only handle so much.
I know. It's very concerning. it's very concerning, the pressures that men are feeling. And, you know, a lot of times people who do reach out to me, it's kind of like they've tried a lot of different things and they don't know what to do next. And there's a lot of confusion and they feel very isolated and disconnected. And ultimately, they don't feel seen at all or heard. And
So let me just interrupt. What do you mean when they say they're seen? Because seen just a word. What is being when a man feels that he's seen? What does that mean that he's seen, and what does it mean that he's heard?
to be heard means for the messages and the communication that's really inside of him, for it to actually be received by his partner.
Okay.
And that there's a real open channel of communication, that what, like, the actual thing that he really wants to say is actually spoken, right? That he is able to say the things that he really wants to say, and that the other person, partner or child or whoever, is that it actually lands for them. And that person then goes, okay, I hear you, I see you, I understand, right? And then from that point, there can be a really beautiful conversation that can unfold in a lot of those situations. And a lot of times, these places of this discussion is usually about money, it's about sexuality, or it's about work, or it's about their children.
So would you call that the top four in no particular order?
No, those are the top four. Absolutely. What I would almost say money is the most between money and sex, those two are probably the most challenging to speak about. And then, you know, the place of work stuff can be difficult as well, but then also the children.
It's interesting. I would love to know if we had a chance to just ask 100 men their happiness quotient in each one of those areas out of 10.
Yes. Yes. Those areas are so telling. And I can tell you, if there is some hesitation, if there's areas of uncomfortableness, emotional things that start to come up from any of those areas, then if it's in one area, it's most likely in another area as well. They're not isolated. There's a line of something between those that's a thread that can ultimately either be connected back to conditioning, or it can be connected, you know, to the places of how the subconscious is working. And it also can be connected back to traumas and things like that too.
Just an addition to the conversation about lying, share with our audience how important trust is to a man or the men that you help.
Okay, how important it is for a man to trust their partner. It's interesting because so from a woman's perspective, trust is so important. There's a place there that a woman can relax and really allow that the communication and that safety, right? A woman feels held and safe. So trust is a big deal. For men, trust is like, it's kind of unspoken. I feel like there's a place here from, you know, for men where it's important, and when we're in the most intimate moments, I think that a man he wants to be able to speak and to share his thing, but he is concerned that by speaking and sharing some of the most private things that there could be anger or there could be a reaction to that.
Okay.
And so that right there, in those moments, if a man speaks from a place of real, like, okay, this is really what's on my heart, and then it's not received, or it's shamed, or if there's certain things that evolve from that, what can happen is that a man can really retreat and not feel safe or heard, and it's just it's broken trust in a way.
Yeah. You're getting to, again, my alleged mind to just share with us, how deep is it when a man has his trust broken?
Oof.
Having some fun tonight, Katrina. You know I was gonna come. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna roll up the sleeves. I only got you for a certain amount of time. So, what share people, because a lot of people only see the exterior of manhood, and you've been blessed with the opportunity to get to the interior of
Yep.
manhood. And I really believe a lot of people don't understand, and there are some women that don't understand what a man goes through when his trust is broken.
So so I'm actually working with a man right now in that place of broken trust. And it's interesting when you're in a relationship, and if as a man you set up a boundary, right? You state, okay, like I really don't want to talk about this specific thing, or I'm asking for time on something, right? So don't ask me about that. Um, a boundary. Boundaries are important in relationships. They're really important. And so when a man states a boundary and then it's broken, it can be, oh my God, it can be so devastating. I've seen that in so many different relationships where a man will set a boundary and then the woman just thinks, okay, it's going to be forgiven. I can cross this boundary. But it really is devastating. And actually, in this particular moment, it broke up the relationship.
Wow.
Like, it was that big of a deal because there was a feeling of disrespect and broken trust. And when a man feels that place where his partner or his loved one is not able to hold a place of his wound or his boundary, it's devastating.
Hmm. Hmm. Talk it, Katrina. You're on fire. It's true.
Yeah.
Because
It's yep.
I think it's just that a number of people just don't think a man, just because he doesn't show those emotions, it doesn't mean that he doesn't have those emotions.
And I think that's it right there. Just because he doesn't show it doesn't mean he doesn't have it. So men, you do have these deep emotions and it is real. And there's every place for you to feel the devastation of broken trust, of not feeling respected or heard, and I think, I've seen it in my own 7-year-old son, where it would be so easy, right, for us as a society to just reinforce that place. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's just a boundary. Like, no big deal. Get over it. Like, don't think anything of it. You're not respected, right? I think there's a lot of places in here where men just take it and they're done taking it. And they want a place to be heard and say, I'm done taking it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being heard. And the trust that I thought I had is not there.
And what usually happens when it gets to that point?
What usually happens is usually typically in that scenario, the man's like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And
Hmm.
that's when, potentially a divorce or a relationship ends, or, all sorts of different places. Well, what I've seen in these types of situations, it's a massive place for growth. So a lot of times the men in that situation will be like, okay, I'm tired of this. I got to do the inner work. Something's going on here. I'm attracting people who are continually willing to cross my boundaries, who are willing to lie, or where I can take responsibility for the places that I've lied, and start to own these places and forge stronger relationships. So I want to just speak to the place of when couples have stepped into places of support within the container that I hold, um, magic can happen. Their relationship can dissolve, and then they can forge a new, stronger relationship if they both feel aligned with it. And that's the alignment piece.
Okay.
That's the place of, if you feel, when you've started to address these things where we don't feel heard, where we feel betrayed, where we can't trust, then we can come back together into that oneness and have that
Man.
bond that is so powerful.
Katrina, you're such a good friend because you segue into it so nicely. Because I was going to ask you about how to the movement toward oneness and authenticity, and you're just laying the foundation. We should switch. We should switch.
You're
Fantastic.
welcome.
Yeah, well, no, just beautiful. You just went down that runway so wonderful about moving to the oneness and authenticity. Can you expand a little bit on that, moving into and the process of the oneness and authenticity that you achieve with the men that you help?
Whew, you know, oh my God, there's nothing more amazing than a man who knows he doesn't have to seek something outside of himself.
Mm,
That's alignment. When a man goes, I know who I am and I have everything that I need right here. Oh my God.
that's a Socratic theory about coaching that we believe, and I'm a certified coach, folks. Just want to prove I do have a certificate, by the way, that that everyone has what they have inside of them to reach their dream goal and desire. Just a lot of times they need individuals like Katrina or myself to help them get to there.
Yeah. It's beautiful, isn't it? But I think that's the place of service that feels so alive, is when a person comes into that place of no longer seeking or willingly giving their power away, or being in places that are devastating for their health and their vitality. So it's amazing when that oneness happens, and we're all evolving on this journey into that oneness.
Absolutely. Well, Miss Katrina, I'm not going to take you away anymore from your wonderful family because I know they're missing and loving you. So I don't want them to get mad at me. They'll probably climb on me and beat me up. So I don't want to get I don't want to get beat up. It would make quite a cute picture, by the way. But
It would.
um, before we let you go, any final words you'd like to actually hear? I'd like to close off with this. What's your message to women about men, and what's your message to men about? Told you right on time. The time. So we'll make it quick.
Okay.
It's all right. That's so cute.
Go ahead. Go ahead. That's my son. Yes. Okay,
All
I'm
right.
here.
Okay.
So what's the message to men?
What is the message to for women when it comes to men, and what's the message you have for men about men? Okay, I think Katrina has froze on us, so we'll just wait another few seconds.
I think we froze.
Yes, you're frozen on my end. You're frozen. There
Okay,
we
we
go.
froze.
We're back.
All right, we're back. Okay, what's the message for women?
What's your message to women about men, and then what's your message for men to men?
For men to men?
Yeah, your message for men.
Yep.
That's the second part. The first part, what's your message, ladies? This is what I want to tell you about men, and then
Okay.
men, this is my message to you.
Okay, so ladies, this is what I want to tell you about men. They want you to own your anger. Like take responsibility for your anger, ladies. Like really. Hire a coach. Be present. Understand where your anger is coming from because they want you to own it and to express it in healthy ways. That is what I would say. That's where I've seen in all the relationships. Men, like, they want their woman to be able to navigate and understand anger in healthy ways. So, and I'm not talking about anger that's divisive. I'm talking about healthy, constructive places. So that's one thing that I've seen. And then men, for the message to men, you are accepted for exactly who you are today in this moment. And we don't want you to be any different than who you are. And it's not about trying to change. It's just about coming back more into that oneness and that wholeness and that sovereignty. In fact, if anything, it's just about accepting more of you that is so magical, and we want to see that.
Wonderful. Great way to finish off an epic conversation. If you want more of Katrina, there's her website, theelementallifestyle.net. On Instagram, at Katrina_Elkins. And email, Katrina at theelementallifestyle.net. Katrina, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you, Dr. Vibe. Like, really, thank you for holding this space of this conversation. I knew it was going to be epic, and you inspire me in so many ways, and the places of where you're present on Clubhouse, where you're present in the lives of thousands of men just during COVID. It's so inspirational, and I'm really in gratitude for what you've done.
I receive that and gratitude back to you, and I just here to serve. And as I say, just want to make fathers and men better so we can make families better.
Yes.
Make them better, yes. And then we can make them better for themselves, their families, and the world. Because I'm a strong believer, the better men are, the better the world's going to be.
Just yes. Yes.
I got a yes. All right.
Yes, you got it. Yes.
She's gonna go dancing now. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Well, everybody, it's Dr. Vibe here, the host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations. 2020 Podcast News Award winner, in 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and I host the only online show in the world for fathers and dads that is sponsored by Dove Men Care. It's also co-sponsored by DAD, Central Canada's national fatherhood organization, and I am the Global Food and Drink Initiative board chair. That organization's purpose, it's a multimedia not-for-profit, and what they do is they showcase Blacks in the diaspora. They're doing all that in food, wine, and travel. I'd like to thank everyone who watched live or on the replay. It's appreciated, not taken for granted. And as always, I end off my conversations with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. And remember to give yourselves grace and to walk good. And also love, faith, and respect. Take care, everybody.